While the world studies the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran, and we all notice how Lebanon has become central to that MOU working, Palestine and Palestinians continue to suffer. This is despite the fact that the Gaza peace process or plan was implemented in October last year. We had the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, but since October, more than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed. 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip have been living in makeshift shelters and in camps. Aid relief is still barely trickling in. And on the West Bank, there's been a surge of Israeli settler violence, attacks on people, on homes, and on property, as well as livelihoods. I'm speaking today to Ambassador Abdullah Mohammed Abu Shawesh, the Palestinian ambassador. He's speaking to the media to draw attention to the health and humanitarian catastrophe that is confronting the occupied Palestinian territory. Ambassador Shawesh, thank you for joining me on Keep Talking.
Thank you so much indeed, dear Anuradha, for having me today. It's always a pleasure to be hosted by you and, of course, by many other, or all other decent and honorable journalists in India.
You want to tell us why you're speaking to the media in India this week, and what is the particular crisis that you want to draw our attention to?
Gaza and West Bank is enduring an again unprecedented catastrophic humanitarian situation, particularly in the health sector itself. In Gaza, after again 986 days of continuous ongoing genocidal Israeli war against the Palestinian people, after destructions of thousands and tens of thousands of buildings, uprooting the cemeteries. Tens of cemeteries had been uprooted, and up to date, thousands of bodies and human remains is still on the surface. This creates, again, and the destruction, of course, then of the infrastructure, sewage water, and all of this stuff. And of course, not to forget to say that 19 out of 36 of the hospital of Gaza is still partially operating. This creates a situation where the diseases, rats, and all other unimaginable situation was inflicted and was spread in Gaza, so that disease is there, skin disease is there, rats is there. Rats is eating the part of the life people bodies, especially the children's. Malnutrition, not to mention the malnutrition that and acute malnutrition that had been caused by the using the starvation as a war method by Israel, and much other to talk about it, so that the catastrophic situation in Gaza is reaching an unprecedented level. We are in a desperate need for the people, the media, to shed light on it. In the occupied West Bank, and due to the financial strangulation measure that the Israeli government and the Israeli occupation took against the Palestinian people, by withholding the tax money, the tax revenue, the Palestinian tax revenue, which is reached more than up to date, more than $5.5 billion. This creates a very heavy pressure in two main sectors in Palestine, the education sector and, of course, the health sector. When it came to the health sector, just to give some figures about the health sector in Palestine. Last year, during this period of 2025, the Palestinian health sector conducted 65,000 medical surgery. Up to date, since the beginning of this year, only 19,500 comparing, which means 1/3 of the last year in the same exact period. 11,000 surgery have been postponed since the beginning of this year. The vast majority of the medicine and tablets is short. The Ministry of Health shelves is short of the vast majority of the tablets and medicine, and especially the life-saving medicine. 50 out of 97 of the cancer and trauma needed medicine and the treatment is short or it's not funded right now. So that thousands of Palestinian patients, elderly and the children, women and others, their life, their their life on the brinks of death, on the brinks of blood. It's in a very critical situation.
Ambassador, we spoke in August last year when you were visiting Mumbai, and at that time we talked about the famine being declared and as a result of the genocidal actions of the Israeli occupation in the Gaza Strip. Since then, in October last year, we saw the Gaza peace process being implemented with great fanfare by the US President Donald Trump. From October to June, are you saying that this peace process has not helped in any providing any relief to Palestinians? Because I know that the death toll is 1,000, more than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed since this peace process. So has that peace process not achieved any results on the ground?
We talk about peace process because wording have a meaning. What was declared by Trump last year is not a peace process. It was officially called the comprehensive plan to end the conflict in Gaza. It's not a peace process. There is a big difference between peace process or peace plan and what had been announced in last October. Since last October up to today, more than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed in a daily basis. Israel did not stop killing the Palestinians. And yes, they declared the acceptance of the what's so-called the ceasefire, but they did not abide by what did the Israeli accept. The Israeli also accept in the peace and the comprehensive plan to end the conflict in Gaza to allow the humanitarian aid to enter to Gaza in a sufficient amount. Up to the less than 1/4 of the necessary or the daily needed of the humanitarian assistance is still entering to Gaza. Many of the conditions that had been put and agreed by Israel at that plan had been violated by the Israeli occupation itself. That plan was started by what's so-called the yellow line, which consumed 50% of Gaza. Today, the yellow line, or what is totally under the Israeli occupation control in the occupied Gaza Strip, is 70%, which means that Israel extended the yellow line another to occupy or to control another 20%, added to the 50% that they have already. So that what you are hearing from and of course in the media is completely different from the reality in the ground. And unfortunately, by the eruption of the war between the United States of America and Israel from one side against Iran from the other side, put the Palestinian file in the shelf or in the back. So that, yes, in a daily basis, since the declaration last October of the comprehensive plan to end the conflict of Gaza, Israel violated every single condition that they or it sign and agree upon.
Since the US and Israel war started on Iran, and then Israel started attacking Lebanon, and today, people are calling Lebanon the new Gaza. Has the attention moved away from the suffering of the Palestinians and from the fact that Israel has violated the conditions of that, ceasefire that was negotiated in October last year?
No, when you say that the people calling Lebanon as Gaza, no, not the people, it's Israel. And the Israeli official who is calling to turn Lebanon to become another Gaza. This is their declared position. This is their this is what they use to announce officially, political official, and in the military rank, in the higher military rank. So that we cannot say that the Indian or the American or the Palestinian saying that or calling for Lebanon to be Gaza. It's only the Israeli who is calling for it. Because again, wording has a meaning. Yes, by the war that has launched by the American and Israeli from one side against Islamic Republic of Iran. Unfortunately, the tension on and the focus on the Palestinian file was being postponed or being put in a second class, so that yet we had been negatively affected just 3 days ago in the G7 meeting. President Sisi, His Excellency Abdel Fattah Sisi, mentioned that we should not, because he alerted that Israel is utilizing and capitalizing the war with Iran to extend and expand the yellow zone or the yellow line, and to buy, to take more, to control more land of Gaza, which reached to 17%.
We are now hearing that Israel is very upset with the peace deal that the United States and Iran have agreed to, the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding. Do you fear, are you concerned that Israel will double down on what it is doing in Gaza and in the West Bank, that there will be repercussions that will be felt directly by the Palestinians as a result of Israel's anger with the peace deal that Iran and the United States have agreed on?
Indeed, by signing the Memorandum of Understanding for the pause of the war for 60 days between United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran, Israel was, and the Israeli leaders from the government side and the opposite side, is fully frustrated by ending the war. Indeed, it's in a very dangerous time, not for us as a Palestinian, but also for the whole entire Middle East. They are also, for the media that is very close to the Israeli propaganda or to the Israeli point of view in America and in Israel, did not stop even attacking the President Trump and his and the Vice President himself, the American Vice President. The frustration is reaching an unprecedented level in Israel. They want the war to continue, and even just yesterday, the fugitive from justice, the Israeli Prime Minister, announced that we will be free to operate in Lebanon, while Lebanon is also one of the very first condition ending the war in Lebanon is one of the very first condition in this Memorandum of Understanding. So that the frustration is there, and we are in the or the Israeli election. We should be extra aware as international community that the Israeli upcoming election is just a few months ahead, so that this means that the fuel of the Israeli election in the current government, in the current political faction whom is leading Israel, or in the opposite itself, the main fuel for those political factions in the opposite and in the current government is how much that they can, how many war that they can launch, how many Palestinians that they can kill, how many pressure can they put on the Middle East and in the American themselves. So that again, we are on the brinks of a very dangerous situation. No one can predict what this fugitive from justice, the Israeli Prime Minister and his coalition, can make to destroy the Memorandum of Understanding between U.S. and United and Iran from one side, and no one can predict what can the current government and the opposite can do to the Palestinians, especially in Gaza and in particular in West Bank, to harm their situation, to put more pressure. And this is the only way to gain more vote and more voices in the ballot boxes in the upcoming election.
So we have seen what has happened in the Gaza Strip over the last 2 years, especially, and continuing even now. In the West Bank, there has been a surge of attacks and settler violence, attacks on people, attacks on livelihood, attacks on homes of Palestinians in the West Bank. Has that become much worse than it was before, what the Israelis are doing in West Bank at this point of time?
You should lighten a very important aspects, which is the Israeli or the Israeli Jewish settler terror, not violence. There's a big difference between violence when there is a clash between two equal parties. What has happened is a according even to the Israeli two of the Israeli former prime ministers, it's not violence, it's a terror attack. This terror, or the Jewish terror attacks against the Palestinian people in West Bank, reach an again unprecedented level, fully supported by the Israeli military army and fully supported by the high rank of the whole entire government. Just to make them, just to give some figures, the tens of the herding communities in West Bank have been expelled and ethnically cleansed from its traditional place of living. And you know that the Bedouin or the herding community is there in Palestine for many thousands, even before the step or before the idea of the Jewish or Abraham himself to come to Palestine, to Canaan. This herding community, Palestinian herding community, Canaani herding community was there even before the starting point of the history of the Jewish in themselves. Those herding community have been expelled and ethnically cleansed from its land, from their land, of course, which is land. I mean, 60% of the West Bank of West Bank, which is classified as Area C. The daily terror attack that we are endured, costing us tens of lives, civilian life. The Jewish attacking terror Jewish gangs attacking the Palestinian community, the isolated Palestinian community, the isolated Palestinian villages in a daily pace. And when I say in a daily pace, I mean it. The expansion of the settlement is there. More than 200 settlement had been, or a new settlement had been started. The building, thousands of a new building have been announced by the Israeli government, and series of measures have been taken against the Palestinians to concentrate them in a concentration camp right now. Not only this, more than 1,000 gates. Could you imagine some of the villages which contained 5,000 to 6,000 civilians being closed by one gate? And these gates, and I can share with you one of these videos. One settler, one Jewish terror settler, can close and decided to cut the life or to cut the communication between this village and the other place or the whole entire West Bank. So this is what we are enduring, and I strongly advise everyone who's concerning about to know more about what happened in West Bank is just to follow our media, our official media, or to follow even the Israeli media, and to follow what the EU announcement about the settlement and the settlers.
Ambassador, anti-Israel sentiment has surged globally since October 2023, at least among the public in many countries, in Europe, even in America. And in America, we can see the impact anti-Israel sentiment is having on domestic politics at this point of time. Yet, in a complete contradiction, there is no improvement of any kind in the life of Palestinians. How do you explain this contradiction? We've also seen European countries like Spain and Italy say that they will call off their defense pacts with Israel. And yet, Palestinians are still in the same condition that they were, historically since this occupation started.
Indeed, when you are rightly mentioned that the Israeli or the Palestinian gain a lot of support from the international community. Just last day, the vice president, the American vice president, J. Vance, said that the only one who's still supporting Israel is the current U.S. President Donald Trump, but the others is not supporting them. It's everywhere, the support for the Palestinian people in the streets everywhere. It's not only in Europe, America, and even here in India. And I'm very proud to say that I used to receive tens of requests to meet me, tens of calls to me, tens of issues that to show that the Indian people at large, by all their differences, are still and still supporting the Palestinian people, even who is not even with and in agreement with what happened in Palestine in the or our legitimate resistance to the Israeli occupation. But to be very frank, even in India here at large, the Indian people is supporting and continue to support, and the support for the Palestinian people is graduating day by day because they can see what happened to the Palestinians. But still, the Palestinians suffering, and the same issue is no. It's not only the same issue. The situation is going from bad to worse since October 7, 2023, and this is due to one very important reason. All what we receive is still in the theoretical level. Lip services, it's important, it's very important. Even the acknowledgement and the recognition of the state of Palestine by many European countries, especially the one who sowed the seed for all the misery that we are endured, I mean the United Kingdom. It's very important, politically speaking. Yeah. But how to convert this solidarity, how to convert this support to the Palestinian people to something that in a practical, that's something that shows some effect in the ground. It needs a will. Yet the international community did not have the will. Yet the Western country did not have the will. Yet the Western country in particular is still using their lip services towards the Palestinian people. And in the practical level, they still supporting the Israeli occupation. 51 countries had been, or according to the Al Jazeera report that had been published just 2 weeks ago, 51 countries during the genocidal war used to support and to supply Israel with different type of ammunition and killing machine. This support was guaranteed the continuous genocidal war against the Palestinians. We need the will. The will is very important. You cannot say that the international community, the European country, was imposed 30,000 different, plus of course, different type of sanctions against Russia. But when it came to the Israel and the Israeli genocidal war, Israeli citizen, terror settlers and others, they impose yet zero type of sanctions against them. This is a hypocrisy, this is double standard. So that as long as the international community lay and short of them will to convert its willingness or its support to the Palestinian people to a tangible issue, we will continue to suffer, and day by day and day after day, the situation will deteriorate from bad to worse.
In this Iran-US agreement for peace, there is a lot of mention of Lebanon, but there is no direct mention of Palestine and the problems of Palestine and the suffering of Palestine. What do you see as the way going forward, given that the Gaza ceasefire and the conflict resolution has been violated by Israel? Even phase 1 has not been successful. You have the Board of Peace that is conducting negotiations between Hamas and other factions, representing Palestinians and Israel, and with mediators. So what happens next? Where does the Palestinian issue go next, given that this is the scenario in the global context?
Indeed, when you said conflict, it's not a conflict. Two things. It's a genocidal war against the Palestinian people. Yes. This is not our war. This is what the international community respected. Of course, except the Israeli and the American, who is refusing the word genocidal war, but it's a genocidal war. And before it was a genocidal war, it's an Israeli occupation to the Palestinian people.
And it's important to say it like that. I agree.
I know that, but I know that we have been consumed, or our global consensus had been Zionized. And I want to stress on that, Zionized from Zionists. Zionized by improving and by putting many of the words that confusing word, likewise conflict. It's not conflict, it's the Israeli genocidal war, it's the Israeli occupation. And here I would like just to take you back 100 plus years ago, when India was under the British colonization. Was it this conflict or British colonized? The British was colonizer or it was a conflict between India and
You make this point. You make this
100%. It was
clearly, Ambassador. You have made it
absolutely.
in the past, and I agree. You make this point very well, and I agree that we must be clear in the language we are using when we are talking about Palestine and we are talking about what is going on at this point of time. I
The
take
very
that.
first, just one very important issue. The very first lesson that I learned it in the United Nations, where I served approximately
Yes.
8 years plus, was wording have a meaning. And this lesson I had been learned it from one of my Indian colleagues. So that wording have a meaning, it's not conflict. And I trust that you got my point. The other issue is that when you tackle the issue of board of peace, can you imagine one of this board of peace member is the fugitive from justice, the wanted person for the international justice, the fugitive from justice, Benjamin Netanyahu? Could you believe of the board of peace? As a rational person, we should, when we talk about board of peace, at least one of its members should not be wanted to the international justice, should not be classified according to the international law as a fugitive from justice, which is Benjamin Netanyahu. The board of peace cannot become board of peace, or we cannot call it board of peace. We cannot trust it as long as the person, the fugitive from justice, 90, who's responsible of killing 73,000 Palestinians, is still member of there. When it came to the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding, yes, Iran was accommodated all the interests of Lebanon, but there is zero mentioning for the Palestinian people in this. And this is a very important lesson, not only for the international community, but for us as a Palestinian, to know that we are not part of, to make sure that, and all the time we are not part, and we had not been part of the Iranian agenda. Likewise, how did the Israelis trying to say that the Palestinian is part of the Iranian agenda? When it came to phase one, unfortunately, the one who demolished, the one who destroyed, the one who did not abide by what did he agreed in phase one is Israel and only Israel. And I already mentioned at the very beginning, how did Israel violated, what did they agree upon it in the Trump plan to end the conflict in Gaza last October.
Ambassador, I'm going to let you go, but I have one final question. What is it that you expect from people at this point of time? What do you need? What do Palestinians need from India and from other countries around the world at this point of time?
Since we are stressing on the health sector itself, and I can raise my voice and call for the international community, it's the exact time to save tens of thousands of the elderly person, women and children in Palestine by supporting us by the necessary and needed medicine. When it came to India, and I already discussed this issue with Minister of External Affairs, the Indian Minister of External Affairs, with my counterparts there. And the other issue, when it came to India, India is the very first country to export the medicine worldwide. India is the biggest producer of the medicine at the global level. If it is not India, then who? If it is not now, then when? So I ask and I appeal to the Indian people, to the Indian government, and to the Indian different institutions to send and to support the Palestinian people for all the needed medicine that can save the life. Every life is matter.
When we spoke in August last year, Ambassador Shawesh, you said that the mainstream media had offered no place to you to present the Palestinian side of the story. Has that changed at all?
I would like to stress on the same exact issue. Yes, unfortunately, the mainstream media in India did not open their door for me to visit them, and part of them, unfortunately, even did not gave me the chance to pay them a courtesy visit. The Israeli ambassador is used to be very famous and really appeared in many of the mainstream media screens here. Many of these mainstream media screens did not yet invited me to counter the Israeli propaganda. But many, of course, of many Israeli Indian media outlets is receiving me and giving me the chance to appear and to reach out to the people here. And also, let us be very frank, the size of the blood, the catastrophic situation, whether it is, no one can hide it. The social media is still playing a crucial role here in India and elsewhere. The catastrophic situation cannot be hid, and no one can hide it. So it's my appeal to the mainstream media. It's the exact time to give us the chance to tell our story, as it's in a very fair, it's in a very right issue. This story, this catastrophic issue, this book have two chapters. One chapter is the Israeli chapter, well-known chapter, will propagate such chapter, but the other chapter, the Palestinian, yet had been not heard. It's the exact time to listen to us.
Ambassador Shawesh, thank you very much for making time to join me on this podcast, Keep Talking. There is a lot of support among Indians for the Palestinian cause and for Palestinians. I wish you the very, very best.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. Have a good day.